What's going on, everybody? Draft Network scouting team here. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, Keith Sanchez, Damian Parson, and we're here to talk about one of the deepest position groups for the 2023 NFL Draft amidst our latest TDN 100 release, spotlighting the top 100 prospects eligible for this April's draft. The cornerback position. There's a lot of conversation about premier positions across the league. There's a lot of trends towards passing. We're seeing all these defensive evolutions, a lot of zone coverage, trying to limit explosive plays. Well, those guys on the outside still have to have height, weight, speed, length, explosiveness, fluidity, all of the above. Here's the good news. We got a bunch of guys in this year's class that check the boxes as NFL starters at the cornerback position. So the first question I have is this, and Dame, I'm going to start with you. When you think about the top of this class, how many guys do you think have a legitimate claim to CB1 when it's all said and done?
Man, Kyle, I might shock you guys with this, but I think it may be 4. Like I'm really high on Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Cam Smith, and I love Devon Witherspoon from Illinois. You know, and the last 2 names are 2 of the more physical brands of corners in this class. Guys that will punch you in the mouth, that will hit you. They're twitchy and explosive. They can play man coverage. They can play zone. I don't recall a corner group as talented as this in recent memory to me with this much depth. So, you know, teams that need corners in the top of the first half of the draft, you're going to feel happy looking at this board. When you're time to pick, you're going to have the pick of the litter when you're in the top 15 and the quarterback's gone and the edge rushers are off the board. And you know, if Bijan's off the board, you're going to be able to look at Christian Gonzalez in the face or Joey Porter and the rest of the guys that I just named, and you're going to feel really happy. Your defensive coordinator is going to feel really happy. Like, man, get me one of these studs. I need them on an island in my defense.
Oh, and you think about the resurgence of NFL wide receivers through the last couple of draft classes and all the young talent at wide receiver. Well, the pendulum is swinging the other way with this corner class. Keith, same question to you. Are there any names that were not included by Dame that you would consider in contention for CB1? And if no, are there any names on his list that you would axe off that you don't feel have a claim to CB1?
Yeah, there's a dark horse guy, and the guy that came in, I think he was running in CB1 at the beginning of the season, but we seen some, I guess you would say, shaky film, and that's the cornerback from Georgia, Keely Ringo. And the reason why I say that I think he still has a shot and an opportunity was because at the very beginning of this, Kyle, you mentioned that NFL defenses are playing more zone, right? And projecting Keely Ringo into the NFL, if you're talking about a cover 3 style cornerback, he fits that, right? He's 6'2", he's 200 plus pounds, and we know that he can flat out run. He'll probably be one of the best testers pound for pound at the NFL Combine. And I think just as short as to last year, right, when we had Sauce Gardner, he fit what? He fit a perfect scheme. They took exactly what he did from college and put into the NFL, and now this guy's an all-pro football player, right? And then you think about a couple years back when we had the Trayvon Diggs conversation. Everybody's seen the lows, but then there was also some high points, right, that if you put this guy in the right system, which just so happened he went to the Dallas Cowboys and Dan Quinn's cover 3, and we're getting the best version of Trayvon Diggs. So Keely Ringo, while he does have some film out there that can be questionable at times, I think he's a guy that you have to circle his name because we know once those combine testing numbers come out, this is a guy that's going to test very well, and he does have some high-level football play.
All right, Joe, we got a list of 5. Are you adding any? Clark Phillips going to make the cut here? Or who else you want to put in here on CB1 discussion?
Sitting here the entire time these guys are talking, wondering if I'm going to get the same question and wondering if I'm going to say Clark Phillips because, my goodness, this guy's a dog, man. He's got feet, he's got hips, he got coverage instincts, he tackles, and he's got really, really special ball skills. He's just a little bit small, but one thing we've seen is for all the big corners that are playing good ball, you look at some of the young guys in the league, Tariq Woolen, Sauce Gardner. And we got some of those guys this year. Porter Jr., you mentioned, Christian Gonzalez are big-bodied guys. Clark Phillips isn't that big, but you're seeing the Denzel Wards, the Jair Alexanders, the Asante Samuel Jr.'s being really high-impact players for their teams, and it allows me to be even more willing to buy into a Clark Phillips. So I don't know if I'm going to say that he's got a claim as the number one, but, I don't think he's too far outside of that mix. And, you mentioned just the depth of this class. I think it might be the best position group in this year's class. And going back, I think about the 2017 corner year where we had Marshawn Lattimore and we had Adoree Jackson and Marlon Humphrey and Trey White and other guys that went in the first round didn't pan out, but there was a lot of talent. I think this is a group that really rivals that.
All right, well, let me check my list here. We checked 7, 6. No, yeah, that's about it. I don't have any new names to invoke, but I will cut this list down for my 2 favorites. And Joe, you talked a lot about Phillips and his stature, but ultimately at the end of the day, I do think the teams are going to look at the physical profiles of the unteachable things. And I think you have 3 really rare skill sets. Keith talked about Keely Ringo. But for me, Ringo is a little bit more of a leap of faith where I look at the film that Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter Jr. put out this year, and it's really, really good. Porter Jr. barely got thrown at all year long after the season opening game against Purdue, in which he broke up 6 passes. Like, you might hear me say 6 and say, oh, he just broke up a lot of passes. 6 passes, literally 6 passes he broke up in that contest. Squatting late in the game, almost had a pick 6 on one of those. His technique, I think, has really taken a big step forward. And then Christian Gonzalez, the question for him was the ball skills. Well, as this season played out after transferring from Colorado to Oregon, as the year wore on, you got to see him making more and more plays on the football. So I see those guys as really big, long, physical. They're also straight line speed guys. But I thought their games took a big leap forward as compared to Ringo when I think about the big corners, and I think that's a dividing factor. I'd ask all you guys, is there another corner or another element of any individual corner's game that you think has really helped them with their play this year? Open question for anybody who wants to take that.
Kyle, you talked about ball skills, and Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. He's a little thinner guy, long arms, long-limbed. Dude has the most pick sixes in SEC and FBS history. And you talk about taking the ball away. He baits quarterbacks in, whether it's zone, man. He baits them very well in coverage to think that his guy is open, right? And it's that's kind of a nuanced thing to be able to play off or think, make the quarterback think, hey, yeah, your guy beat me, man. You could make this throw to the sideline, and they'd be like, oops, sorry, no, you didn't. This is mine now, and then take it back, not just jumping routes and making plays, but that innate special ability to then turn it to points, right? Put it in the paint and put points on the board for your team, the way your offense is yeah, we're humming, but then we can add 6 points from defense. That's a big thing too. So that's a name that I wanted to invoke there. When you talk about special abilities and what trait stands out is just the ball skills and the return ability and big play ability after the interception. Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State.
Yeah, I have somebody. Joe got his guy in that's under 5'10", so I have to get my guy in, man. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, man. I have to give a shout out to him. And I think the biggest thing for him was that he got to compete at a high level, right? Everybody got to see him because TCU, they went on this national championship run, so you got to see the type of competitor he was. And Joe already talked about Asante Samuel Jr., right? We watched him in the playoffs, and you've seen that when guys just flat out compete, sometimes they can make up for the little details in the game, right? Like maybe not being the tallest, maybe not being the biggest, but just being nuanced players at the position. I think Travius Hodges and Tomlinson was able to make up for that, and I think he had a really good showcase this past season.
Surely Joe will mention Julius Brents, right?
Man, that guy from Kansas State, I mean, you want to talk about a resume game, watch him against TCU in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, he met that moment in a big way. And so I think in this world of big, long corners, I think Julius Brents is a guy that maybe won't be a first-round guy, but someone you can fall back on day 2 and feel like you get some good value and a lot of the skill set that, is going much higher. He feels like a really good wait and get type player because, man, he really turned it on this year for Kansas State.
Was that who genuinely you were going to talk about, or did you have somebody else on the menu?
Man, I think we got to talk a little bit about Cam Smith from South Carolina, who it felt like he had a lot of momentum going into the season, and all he did was replicate all the things that made us excited about him coming out of the summer, and had a really good resume game against Jalen Hyatt, the speedy receiver from Tennessee. And, he was able to match him up pretty good. And, he's a guy that I think plays with a ton of confidence, and he's certainly good coverage instincts. He's got good feet. He's got good hips. He takes away the football. He tackles, but there is a confidence that he plays with that you just love. And I think, the best performing players pretty much at every position are the ones that are confident. And I don't think you can waver Cam Smith whatsoever. That guy's a dog, and I love the way he plays.
Well, we told you at the top that it's a really deep corner class, and I think we just proved it with all the names that we went through here and talking about the things that we've been impressed with, and there's no shortage of more names on that list. DJ Turner from Michigan is another baller. You got a couple of corners from Maryland that are really, really impressive players. You got this Illinois defensive backfield staying in the Big Ten that seems like every kid's going to get drafted out of this year. So this corner class is going to be one where if you got to defend the pass in years to come, you're going to like your options to help get some upgrades available on day 1, day 2, and potentially even day 3. But we will make sure that you know who all of those players are. So hit subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video. Get the notifications when we drop all of our latest around the TDN 100 and all of our NFL draft content. We are here for you all off season long. It's draft day every day. We don't just say it. We live it every single day. With Joe Marino, Damian Parson, Keith Sanchez, I'm Kyle Krabs. Thanks for checking this out, and make sure you come back and see us again.